Good evening, man. Welcome to Sideline, the Baseline with your boy MB and my man Klew, Papa Smurf. He's not here today, but I got the God is so good. He definitely will provide a ram in the bush. We got our double A, Adam, baby, holding down. How you doing, double A?
Very good. Thanks for having me back, Mike.
Oh, man, appreciate you coming in, man. Appreciate you coming in and supporting us. And then we got my man Ray Farmer. How you doing, Big Ray?
Excellent. If there's any better, I'd be you.
There you go. Well, you know how to say the right things, but no, man. Hey, I just want to dig into Ray, man. Ray is big time. That's my dude right there holding it down. Ray, you know what? I didn't realize you was part of that famous 1996 draft class, huh?
The best draft class in the history of the National Football League.
I thought that was the NBA draft year.
No, sir. NFL. And here's the funny thing. No quarterbacks in the first round that year. Not one.
Are you serious?
Serious. Not one quarterback first round. First quarterback taken was Tony Banks, second round.
Wow. And he played for a minute. He played for a minute. Yeah, Tony Banks was a good player.
So I'm gonna give you my little known history fact, and I'm gonna shut up. 96 is the best draft class in the history of the league because we had one out of every four players that year get 10 years of NFL experience. Challenge anybody else draft class to come match it. Come get at it.
Hold on. You saying one out of every four player?
One out of every four guys drafted that year got 10 years of NFL experience.
Wow. Now, in case they sleeping on this 1996 draft class, and they just because most people hear about the 93 quarterback class and this and that. Ray, tell them why you feel the 96, other than in addition to that fact you just brought up, but tell them about the players. Do a little roll call with your draft mates in that class.
Man, the guys that year, obviously everybody knows the receivers, right? So you got Eddie Kennison, you got Muhsin Muhammad, you got Joe Horn, you got T.O. I mean, you got all the receivers, Bobby Ingram. We got guys that played, well into, past 10 years. Ray Lewis, John Ogden, Brian Dawkins, Gerard Cherry, John Brown, and Donnie Edwards, Zach Thomas. I mean, I could go on for a while.
Zach Thomas. Oh, my God.
Here's the funny thing. Everybody knows Zach Thomas now after he made the league.
Right.
Coming out of Texas Tech, he was a fifth-round selection. He wasn't even in the top part of the draft. So he'd be a day 3 selection in today's word.
And we know who drafted him.
So
it was Jimmy.
Yep, no doubt. That was crazy, man.
You got T.O. in that class and Keyshawn as well.
Keyshawn was first pick that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jonathan Ogden, Marvin Harrison, Brian Dawkins.
You had Marvin Harrison in that class too?
Hey, we've already tied the number of NFL Hall of Famers in the class so far with the guys that have gotten in, and I anticipate us passing that here in the next several years. So, again, don't have the namesake from the quarterback position, but nevertheless had a lot of dudes coming to this league contributing in a major way.
That was Ray's year. Ray Lewis's year.
Yeah. And I mean, Zach Thomas. I mean, he's definitely is going to make it to the Hall of Fame. I mean, that dude. I mean, Pro Bowls. A dude.
A guy that was in that class that would have been a real dude had he not gotten hurt was John Mobley. But John Mobley got hurt. But he would have been a dude that would have been a multi-Pro Bowler. 8, 9, 10, 20 years, however long he would have played. But injury cut him down short. So there were some dudes that didn't get to play because of injury. That they had 10 years plus.
You got Teddy Bruschi, Simeon Rice, Randall Godfrey.
Teddy Bruschi was a third rounder, I'm pretty sure.
Carlos Emmons,
Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles didn't draft him, but that's where he ended up, and that's where most people know him from. So.
Yep. Sam linebacker 51.
Yep.
Earl Holmes.
I mean, we got our dudes now. I see Double A over there looking at the list like, let me make sure this dude actually got some guys in that class. Keep reading them off. Just keep shouting them out. They'll keep rattling off.
Man, that's crazy. And like you said, Hall of Famers and man, Ray. Now, for most people don't know you, Ray was a general manager at the Cleveland Browns. Ray, what made you get going to obviously play football as well? Like we mentioned about being in the draft class, but what made you go into scouting?
You know what? I got out of the league. Same thing, right? Cut down. I had bad knees. So let me go back. when I got to the league, I should have never gotten to the league, if I'm being honest. I had 4 D surgeries in high school. I had 3 more in college. I had 7 by the time I got to the league, right? So I was on borrowed time heading in the door. End of the day, when I got done playing, didn't know what I wanted to do. And everywhere I went is looking for a job or considering what I wanted to do. Everybody said, oh, man, this dude's going back to sports. So I just embraced it. And thank God for Les Snead and Ron Hill for bringing me into Atlanta. And Angelo Wright, even the guy that was my agent at the time, Angelo said, I'll drop your name if you want me to. And Les called me one day, offered an opportunity to interview. I drove down from my alma mater. I was at Duke at the time. And drove down to Atlanta, spent a day or 2 with the Falcons, and they offered me a job, and I was off and running.
Wow. And then, I mean, you went through the ranks real fast, ended up being a general manager at the Browns. And so you're no novice to this upcoming draft. Talk to me about what 7 days now. Next Thursday be the draft. Talk to me about the preparation that takes place going into the draft right now. What are the general managers doing? Because I just read that the 49ers, it's still speculation. They still don't know who to take. I mean, talk to me about this whole process that's going on right now, a week out into the draft.
Right. So, I first of all, I start by saying this, right? This is a different year. Much like last year was different, this year's even more different because the preparation leading up to last year's draft was somewhat regular until you got to February. Right after the combine, everything kind of shut out, closed out and then, but you had done a large share of the stockpiling, so to say, right? So you had the All-Star games, you had a chance to go to Indianapolis and get the physicals. You had the chance to go to college games, see guys, interview coaches, etc. This year, much different, right? You had to do some things in a different way. Scouts were a little more restrictive. You had to be more I'd say deliberate in who you wanted to speak to. And, you didn't have all the face-to-face interactions that you've had over time, right? So this year is going to be trying, but I do believe that technology has shown us that we can still have the communications, have the interactions, and get the jobs done. And so I'm interested to see kind of how it goes down. But to answer your question, the reality of where we are right now is that everybody's going through the same process, which is how do we understand who do we want for our team, who do our coaches want, who did our scouts like, and where do those things meet up, and who's good for us. And the more you can come to grips on who fits well for your squad and everybody's on the same page, those are the guys that you want to get. Now, the problem you have with that is that most teams spend a lot of time trying to understand that, as well as trying to understand the opportunities of what all the other teams want. Because you got to have an idea of where people are shooting. And here's the funny thing. The draft never goes according to scale. All of that pre-draft stuff of reading this guy's going to go 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, whatever, never goes that way, ever. So people trade, people move up, people move down. People fall in love with players, and consequently, the job of any GM right now is to try to find some consensus on a pod of players that they like in particular spots of where they'll be picking.
Okay.
Wow. So let's talk about these quarterbacks before we talk about all these other positions, because that's what gets all the attention, right?
Again, a lot of people fall in love with quarterbacks, and don't get me wrong, it's a vital part to any NFL franchise. But nevertheless, I always wonder how good some of these guys have been had they gone into situations that were more quarterback friendly or quarterback ready, right? Think about all the guys that you've watched come into this league and had a chance to sit, learn, and develop, how that changed their trajectory. Different than today, you ain't got time to sit. We need you right now. We need you on the field, doing it, going to get it, and showing everybody how great you are. And I hate to say it, but the quarterback's not just the savior. And no disrespect to Joe Burrow. I thought Joe Burrow had a really good year. But the reality is one man can't do it by himself.
Right.
And that's not a knock on Joe. That's not a knock on anybody. It's just a reality of guys got to find success in the team and not just the one individual player. But quarterbacks is fine. We can start wherever you guys want to start. Who you want to start with? You want to start with the first pick?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, you got the Lawrence, you got the Fields, you got the kid from BYU, and the other kid, the 49ers moved up for the third pick. They obviously have something in mind.
So the question is what do you think that is? Like, again, so Trevor Lawrence, everybody said that guy is the creme de la creme, right? So 6'6", 200 plus pounds, 220 plus pounds, can throw the football, can run it. And I think the interesting thing about Trevor, he's been a proven winner through high school, through college. He's had success. He's led the ship, and when given enough resources around him, he's found a way to be what I would call the NFL point guard, right? So that's really the job of the quarterback, is to orchestrate and deliver to your other attributes. And Trevor's proven he can do that with the right people around him. So
does Jacksonville have enough around him to be that point guard?
Look,
throw him right under the fire.
I don't think Jacksonville is as far away as everybody want to believe. I think they did do some, for me, I think they did do some things on the defense that hurt them, letting some of those guys out of there, because I thought they had a championship level defense at one point.
No doubt.
But that's part of it, right? You got to give up some assets to get different assets.
Right.
And so, but offensively, yeah, they'll be all right. Running back they got is a good player, and Garrett, he doesn't have namesake. I think the interesting part about this is that people fall in love with the name, right? So don't get me wrong. Brett Bush was probably one of the best college players I've ever seen, and he got to this league, and he was a good player. He wasn't Reggie Bush that we saw at USC, right? So it don't always just go the way that we all think it's gonna go when guys come into this league and get a chance to demonstrate what they're capable of. So I would tell you, Trevor will be fine. And the question for the Jacksonville Jaguars are probably going to be looking to answer is how do they keep him upright? How do they keep him healthy? And can they get him enough attributes that he can do what he does best, which is facilitate offense?
Hey, Ray, when you go evaluate a quarterback, what's some of the qualities that you're looking for in a quarterback? Obviously, you mentioned about the system, but what's some foundational qualities that you got to have or must have in a quarterback?
Again, primary for me, number one is leadership, right? You want a guy that understands how to take control of the offense, take control of your team. Two most important people in an NFL franchise, it ain't the GM, it's the head coach and it's the quarterback. Because the head coach is going to decide how we play, what we play, how we do, how that's orchestrated. And the quarterback is actually going to be the guy that's charged with going out there and making it happen. So those people generally are the face of most of these franchises. So, again, simple history, easy history. Bill Belichick, Tom Brady did a lot of really good things together. Bruce Arians is a hell of a coach. Always has been, in my opinion. He gets Tom Brady, guess what? Super Bowl, right? So those things are real. And so tangibly, you got to find that camaraderie with those two people so that they can actually make the ship go. And so beyond the leadership piece, I would say for me, I always use the acronym DAT, D-A-T. So decision-making, critical. You got to be a person that makes really good decisions. Accuracy, premium in this league. And then I would say timing. And the reason I say timing, Mike knows this as a defensive guy like myself, the windows get small. And because I'm on that guy's hip, he might still be open if the quarterback is good enough, right? He puts that ball over the right shoulder the right way. No matter how good coverage you think you got, it's still a completion. So it's like what they say. There's no defense for the perfect pass. I think that's really what I'm alluding to. So decision making, accuracy, and timing, three fundamental pillars you got to have. I love the leadership qualities, but again, when you start talking about any position on the field, they all have what we'll call critical factors, which you just have to have, and then position specifics of things that you get into that you really want to try to break down and consider when evaluating any position.
So you're going to have a rookie quarterback with a rookie head coach in Jacksonville.
And again, the unknown is that, right? Rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, that's okay, right? That guy's been coaching, and he understands how to put things in place. The reality for Urban Meyer, he's been successful everywhere he's been, pretty much.
Right.
And so I have no doubt that Urban's going to know what to do. He's hired a really good staff to put those guys in position. And consequently, it's going to be how do they then, in my opinion, ask those guys to perform together in a way that makes them gel and move the needle, right? You got to have camaraderie in the locker room and on the field to actually have success.
Well, Ray, based on that formula that you came up with, I don't know how much you had to evaluate these guys in this upcoming quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. Do you have a particular order that you like?
I'll stay away from my order, but I will say
that,
everyone has their positives. There's things that people do that he's probably going to go one, and that's okay. The rumor right now is that Zach is going to be 2. So BYU, for those that don't know, Zach Wilson's probably going to be the second pick is what the rumor is buzzing now. And so really competitive guy, can make all the throws, can be accurate on the move, can comfortable playing inside the pocket and outside the pocket. A lot of really good things about that young man. Not probably is that a little bit of a slight frame, smaller built guy. But again, and that draws concern because those guys on defense get paid too, and they get paid to hunt.
Right.
And so I know this. I had good fortune being here in Atlanta. We had Michael Vick, and the way I look at the quarterback position now is if they hit Mike, they're going to hit you, right? They defensive guys, they look for defensive guys to run, hit, and be aggressive, and they're going to find him. So if he's not willing to augment his game in some capacities of knowing when to slide and avoid those unnecessary hits, that could spell trouble for him. But I have no doubt that the kid's talented enough, smart enough, and ready enough to do those things. The other name I know a lot of people were buzzing on was Justin Fields.
Talk about him because it's a lot of, I guess people now heading to the draft. He started was a clear-cut number 2. Now it seems like he's sliding down the board. What's your thoughts on that?
You know what? The interesting thing is that sliding down the board is the best part of all of it.
Or sliding down the media board, right?
and that's what I was going to get to, right? Is that teams have their opinion on players. And I know the media thinks they know, but they really don't know. No one knows what's going on in anybody's draft room other than that team. And so whatever you hear out there in the media, that could be a team saying, hey, man, y'all might want to watch out for Justin Fields, man. I'm hearing some bad things. I'm hearing whatever. And they play they got slides to where they're going to be at, right? So how do the media can't really understand or function without information, right? So all they're doing is trying to gather as much intel as they can. And as much good information is out there, it's misinformation. So be careful reading into what people are saying, because the reality is that the kid came out of school, number 1 quarterback in the country, talented as all get out, chose Georgia. They had Dick Fromm at the time who had just taken Georgia to a place where they hadn't been in a long time, which is competing for SEC championship and potentially a national championship. They stick with him. Fields gets frustrated, leaves, goes to Ohio State. And all he does is put them back in that same type of dance. So Georgia was on the right guy. Ohio State was obviously on the right guy. The question will be is what team decides to select him in this draft, and then will they put him in position to be successful? So I have no doubt the young man is talented. You can see that he can throw the ball. You can see that he can run. I don't know if you guys saw the times, but he ran a very good 40.
4.4.
His measurables. So
with that medical scare with him coming out and talking about he being on epilepsy meds, would that scare you off at that high a pick? If you were the GM and you had to base your job on it?
I don't think that anything scares me off unless the medical staff comes to me and says, hey, we don't want this, or we can't deal with that, or we can't handle this. I mean, there's kids that have all kinds of issues, from guys that have sickle cell trait, which is something that people live with every single day. But what people don't know is that, like, if you're in Denver, for example, sickle cell trait becomes a real problem because they can't deal with the altitude.
Right.
How it affects their body and organs differently. And so now you start to really consider that guy may be off my board because of sickle cell trait, different than he could be alive, well, and fine for the Dallas Cowboys or a team that's somewhere else.
Makes sense.
So all of these things start to come into play. But again, you got to rely on the other people in your building, right? The medical staff, the coaches, everybody's going to come into this process to give us a better picture to what this player is actually going to do for us. And when you get that, that's when you kind of feel really good about whoever you decide to select. Who else? Any more quarterbacks? Or did I just want the top 3? Do y'all want to get Trask and all the people?
Yeah, no, like I guess right now they got, based on the media, you got 5 quarterbacks could potentially go number 1. I mean, go first round. You mentioned three of them. I guess the other two would be
Trey Lance,
Mac.
North Dakota State.
Yep. Tell me about him. What's your thoughts on him?
Mac or North Dakota State?
Trey. You can start with Trey.
I like Trey, right? Played under center, played from shotgun, North Dakota State, and people are going to kind of hold the one game they played in 2020 against him. The kid was phenomenal in 2019. In 2020, in a lot of respects, was kind of like a mulligan year. I mean, kids show up in the summer, they're there all year, they're trying to get ready to play. We're not sure if we're going to have a season, if we're going to have class, if we're going to have anything, because we're still kind of in the middle of that pandemic situation, and we're still here now. But even still, they drag him through practice, they go out and play. Doesn't play necessarily well in 2020, but the 2019 stuff, he can throw, he can run, he's creative, he can play under center, he can play from shotgun, he's smart, he's obviously a leader as well. And he's coming from a program that's produced pro quarterbacks in the past, and not just Carson Wentz, right? And the reason I say that is that the guy that started that North Dakota State run is a guy by the name of Craig Bowl. Craig Bowl is now the head coach at Wyoming. So if you think through this whole process of how North Dakota State came from where they were to what people know them as now, in the last several years, like I said, Carson Wentz was a North Dakota State product. The other guy is Josh Allen, who's the Wyoming quarterback, who's now
Wyoming Cowboys. Right? Yeah, exactly.
So if you think about how they have identified who those players are, they've been working from the same model. So if Trey Lance fit that model for them to acquire him as a high school kid, I'm sure he's going to be still in that same mindset of growth and potential and opportunity for the National Football League. Those other two guys, top 10 picks. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Trey Lance. I think the kid has a ton of ability. And the same thing for Mac Jones, right? He chose Alabama, someone on a different scale, right? Not Trey Lance coming out of high school. This kid goes to Alabama, premier college program in the country. And what does he have to do? He has to sit and wait. He just sitting and wait, throwing rocks, being as good as he can be in practice, going to meetings, learning his craft, working every day. And then when he gets a chance to play, he plays well. Now, everybody discredit him to some degree and say, well, he's playing with an NFL team right now. Right. That may be true. But even if that is true, he still had to go out there, execute, operate, and make them successful, and he did just that.
He looked real good running an NFL team.
and here's the funny thing. What would everybody say about Mac Jones? He's a pocket passer, correct? But again, this kid ran 4.6.
Right.
So, let's not just get caught up in what you hear, what you say. This kid does have some athleticism in his body. He's capable of doing a lot of really good things given the opportunity. And it'll be amazing to see, again, where all these guys end up landing and then what that look like. Because I think the interesting part is, what does San Francisco do at 3? What does Atlanta do at 4? And there's going to be a whole lot of movement, in my opinion, in that circle around what's going to happen, because there's some really good football players. We ain't talked about Penei Sewell and some of the other guys that are being highly touted in this draft as guys that are capable of being Hall of Famers, Pro Bowlers, and difference makers for their programs walking in the door. So sometimes you get caught up chasing that quarterback and you miss out on opportunities to just make the franchise better.
Is there one quarterback that you'd pick out as you'd want to be your Aaron Rodgers, who could sit on the bench for a year or two behind somebody and learn? Is there a guy like that you have your eyes on? Or
I tell you, all of them should. But again, I'm going to get shot down by that because, like I said, no one wants to wait. I would tell you, if people were patient and gave guys the opportunity to learn and grow in this league, you'd probably get better results and you have less failures. But again, you want to throw people to the wolves and see what comes out on the other end. And so that's where we are. Here's the funny thing. At least back in the day, a guy that went in the top of the draft, he got $30 million, $40 million, whatever he got a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. And then now they kind of put the rookie wage scale in place. And so you want that guy to go out there and be thrown to the wolves. I just think it's an interesting dynamic. There's a reason that certain players get the careers that they had. I wonder what would have happened. No offense at all. This is not meant to be anything other than informative. What would Teddy Bruschi have been had they forced him into the lineup the first day he left Arizona and went to the National Football League? Because he really didn't play until year 4 or 5.
Okay.
He didn't come out of Arizona playing the first day he hit the field.
Right.
So the guy had to learn. He had to process. He had to get better. He had to prepare himself to follow the role to where now he was a starter on really good football teams, became a leader, was able to do some of the same things he did in college. But there was a curve, there was a learning curve to that. I think it's the same thing now. We just don't give kids the opportunity to learn, grow, and get better. Those kids that do, some of them come out of nowhere and end up being really good players and players moving forward.
Well, obviously, when you say that, what comes to mind is Aaron Rodgers, but the other guy that comes to mind is Carson Palmer.
Again, I go back, think back through all of these quarterbacks that came out that went number 1 overall, got the bad teams, and flamed out. And people were like, "Oh, this guy's a bust." I don't know if he's a bust as much as, and for everybody that when you play football, I don't care what position you're in, you start taking hits, a bunch of hits, it weighs on you.
Yeah.
Like Mike played linebacker. I would ask the question, how good you feel if they block the guard, they just let him keep getting in your face every single play. That's a rough game. Right? So what the quarterback does when ain't nobody blocking the blitzing linebacker or blocking the 3 technique or blocking the defensive end, he's going to drop the mind and start looking for the rush rather than looking downfield to be a facilitator of football. So that's what I'm saying. When teams are not prepared for the quarterback, not that this guy was a terrible player, he wasn't very good. The other attributes might not have been there to support him to actually have the career he could have had. And sending a guy, developing a guy is different. Had a conversation with a buddy recently, and we were just talking through the same thing. And if you go back and you look at history, when Chad Pennington got drafted, there were 3 quarterbacks on it. There were other quarterbacks on that roster. Testaverde was the starter. Michael noted because he was with the Ray Lucas, but I think was number 2. Chad Pennington was 3. And again, Ray Lucas wasn't that guy, and that's okay. But Chad didn't have to come in and be the guy the moment he stepped out. He got to the Jets franchise. So he proved he could be that guy. But I don't know how many guys get that opportunity to sit, learn, develop, grow, and then bring their talents to the field once they're fully maturated.
I remember the reverse was the case with Aikman, who got beat up early on with Jimmy, and it wasn't until Berline really started winning with that team that Aikman fought and got his job back.
1-15, I'm pretty sure, right? Came out the gate, right? And so go back, look at Peyton Manning, and Peyton played as a rookie, right? Through 28 picks.
Yeah,
28. Now that's cause for disaster in today's world, where the media screen is so hot and heavy that not to say he wouldn't have been Peyton Manning, but this league forces you to learn differently than you've learned in the past. I mean, I hate to say this. This is a generic thought that I always kind of lean on. Guys with big arms when they're kids don't learn the game as readily as the guy that's got a little bit of a softer arm. Because the softer arm kids got to think about the game. The big arm guy just drop back and boom, he's just throwing darts, right?
No doubt.
He don't have to think as much. The guy with a little bit of a softer arm, he's got to think his way through the entire way, and it gives him the ability to prepare differently than the guy that has the big arm. So we fall in love with different attributes in different parts of these kids, but I would tell you the opportunity to grow and learn is important. And hopefully guys will be given those opportunities to grow and develop rather than just being forced out there so that we can all see what happens to Reggie Bush on Sunday rather than him running around on Saturday.
Hey, I agree with that assessment, Ray, because you see the guys with the big arms, they think they can make their throw. They try to be more aggressive and squeezing in, and guys who understand they don't have the arm strength, they got to be more meticulous in their decision making. I always said that. I always agree with that one, man.
Again, the whole thing about this league is you will learn. And most of the time you learn by trial by fire. But I'd rather those fires be in practice and let Mike run around and have 2 or 3 picks in practice than I would to learn that in the game. So just my thoughts.
Yeah, and it's funny. It was an article that I was reading on ESPN, and they was talking about the quarterbacks that were drafted in the top 3 picks in the last 15 years. Not one of them stayed with the team more than 5 years. They're gone,
And because how many of those guys actually came into the league truly ready to be that guy?
Exactly.
Talented, like no one questioned their talent. They got selected. They showed they had the attributes to be selected where they were selected. But at the end of the day, not able to grow. Go back and again, I'm going back and dating myself. Eli Manning, he sat on the bench for 8 games. Philip Rivers the same. Yeah, and they were the same draft, right? But they had to sit and learn. Again, different position, but I'll give you another good example. Rondé Barber did not play a single snap during the regular season his rookie year in Tampa Bay.
Wow.
He sat the entire year, and they brought him off the bench in the playoffs, and he became a starter and then a very good player the rest of his career. Guys have to learn, grow, and get better rather than just being thrown out there and forced into action.
Is that a factor of these teams not being able to carry as many players now and not having
carry more players now than we did then?
Yeah.
Carry more players now than we did then. Practice squad that increased. Guys, just more people around today than there were 10, 15 years ago when there was hard line, 53-man roster, hard line. The practice squad, I want to say back then was 8 or 6. And so even before then, you got to think about how teams actually got better. They said, guys, it wasn't a problem for you acquired a young guy in his first few years. He just ran around on special teams. Right. And then after he played special teams for a couple of years and learning to sacrifice for the good of the team while also being forced into practice to learn the intricacies of what they had to do, that's when you start to see guys perform and demonstrate what they're capable of. Like I said, very few guys, in my opinion, walk into this league day one and just start dominating, showing you that they're real guys. Randy Moss comes to mind.
Right.
One of the few that just walked out of the closet and was like, hey, I'm here, and I'm a Pro Bowler.
Exactly.
That's not normal. That is not normal.
No doubt. I totally agree with that. So I guess when you hear San Fran talks about, hey, we're going to draft a quarterback, but we're going to keep Jimmy G. I mean, they're pretty much going with your philosophy, to some degree.
Again, I would tell you, you can't have enough.
Yes.
Specifically the quarterback position. You just can't have enough. I mean, think about what Seattle did back in the day. They had Tavares Jackson, they had Charlie Whitehurst, they just kept bringing guys in, like just collecting guys, and then they collected guys Russell Wilson in the third round. Nobody thought Russell Wilson was going to be a starter. NC State said we will go with Mike Glennon. They sent him out. He goes to Wisconsin. He plays good, gets drafted in the third round, and then lo and behold, he becomes a starter, and he's still there starting today. Right. Again, it's because they were willing to kind of keep going through the grab bag, grabbing guys and trying to develop them, that you end up getting a guy that you can actually live with, grow with, and you like. And so I commend San Fran for taking that approach of, hey, Jimmy G, competition is really what this league is about. Right. Mike knows that this grown man is sitting in here, that wife, kids, girlfriends, all the stuff on the side. Yep. Guess what? There's going to be a young guy walking that door, and he's coming to get your job every year. It's your job to hold him off. So I don't understand why the quarterback position should be no different. The quarterbacks that don't have competition, very few of those guys, you put your team at risk, right? So think about out of Kansas City when Bernard Pollard dove over the pile and hit Tom Brady and hurt his leg. So Tom goes out, insert Matt Castle. Yeah. Right. Matt Castle becomes a high-paid player another year because Tom is hurt and he actually gets a chance to play to see him. Matt Castle never played at USC. That didn't matter, right? He had a skill set. He had an ability. They got him. They trained him. They developed him. He still was able to go on to be an NFL starter later on in his career. But because he sat behind guys, he had a chance to learn and grow. And the whole point that I'm making is that the team is in jeopardy if you only have one quarterback. Yeah. Because today, in today's world, to me, the other thing I would tell you, the game is getting closer to being the college game than it is the old school pro game. You're seeing more and more shotgun. You're seeing more and more bubbles and flip screens and all the stuff that RPO. Jet sweeps. Running wide zone. Not very many teams, I know San Francisco does it, but not very many teams still employ the fullback and use him in a meaningful way and running two-back concepts and running bob blocks where you got the back on the backer and we're trying to drive and create wedges and get downhill. It's not the game anymore. So as we look at that, you got to find space for enough quarterbacks on your roster to know that if I have a guy that will leave the pocket and run and move and he gets hit, that we still have another guy that can come in and play if something happens to him. Right. No, you know what? You're right. And you know what I thought about? I mean, Patrick Mahomes, right? Yeah. He set out the year, And man, so look at what I mean. That's a great point you brought up. So, because a lot of people, what's your thoughts on the Green Bay? They did the same thing. They got Jordan Love, but then now if you could say, lit a fire on Aaron Rodgers. What's your thoughts on that? And look, it's the same thing. Aaron Rodgers did the same thing to Brett Favre.
Yep.
Hey, look here, man.
The Ron Wolf philosophy.
Yep. Hey, look, like I said, you can't have enough. If we get the right guy, and what Aaron Rodgers had for 3 years.
Yep.
3 years. He had 1 year left on his contract to be a free agent, and they make the man the starter. So guess what? It's the maturation of this league. And granted, guys play longer. I mean, Tom Brady almost my age. And he's still out there throwing it around, eating avocado toast, whatever else he's doing, but he's getting it done. And getting it done is what it's about, right? And so I would never run Tom Brady off, but I will say this. New England has had a history of keeping players right up until it's time for them to go on to pasture and then moving on.
Right.
And a credit to Bill Belichick, and this is by no means offense to Tom.
Right.
He just stayed true to his playbook.
Yeah.
Tom, you're 40 years old, man. I love you. We've done a lot of really good things together, but I'm gonna let somebody else enjoy this last however many years you got left, and I'm gonna go on and try to find something different. The only problem that Bill had is he got caught when they ran Jimmy G off to San Francisco, and he didn't have somebody sitting in the wings waiting to come in and take over and move it forward.
Who do you think Belichick's hoping that drops to him? Because he's got a pick there in the mid-first round, right?
Again, I don't know if any of these top guys that we've had a conversation drops to them, because you're gonna have to go get one of them, right? I think there'll be a lot of good players pushed because of the desire to try and find a quarterback, right? And there'll be a lot of assets that change hands as a result trying to find a quarterback. I would tell you, I don't know if anyone falls into his lap that is perceived as ready-made Super Bowl champion, ready to go and dominate the world. Whoever comes out of this draft, and it may not be these guys at the top, there may be some guys that are in the middle and maybe a little bit later that people aren't considering, that those guys are the guys that actually don't come in with the hype and all the noise around them, that they get a chance to go somewhere, sit behind a guy like an Aaron Rodgers or whomever. So another one I would tell you is, what does Atlanta do? Do they bring in a guy to learn from Matt Ryan for the next year or two, knowing that at some point they're probably going to move on? Not now, but at some point they're going to move on. And that would be a good place for them to try to acquire somebody to sit and learn from a guy that's been a real guy in this league, grow, and then be ready in a year or two to play.
I was about to move on from the quarterback, but you said something that intrigued my interest. Is there based on your evaluation of the stuff you've done, is there a particular Tom Brady in this draft that people need to look out for? Maybe that's not getting projected as the first round, but based on your evaluation, man, I think this dude really play in the right situation. Is anybody like that stand out to you, Ray?
There's always guys that you like and you think that they have the ability to play. I'm not going to say any names.
Okay.
But I will tell you this. The opportunity for people to actually make that decision will only be met by those that have job security and confidence that they won't get fired by making that type of selection. Right.
Which are few and far between.
Andy Reid can do it. Bill Belichick can do it. There's some guys out there that they can make that decision and it doesn't come back to haunt them. Other guys got to be really cautious about how much do they value that guy. Because, again, I had the chance to work with Scott Pioli, dear friend of mine, really good dude. Scott would tell you, if we were that smart, we wouldn't have waited that long to take Tom.
Exactly.
Right? Like, if we really had this thing figured out, if I knew that Michael Barrow was going to be Michael Barrow, I would have taken him right here at the beginning.
Exactly.
But everybody's not that smart. And when you get too smart, sometimes you get too smart for your own good, way too long, and then somebody comes by and grabs the guy, and you were going, and a round or a pick in front of you, and that's a disaster as well. So, all I can tell you is that the other thing that's different about the league now, it's all about your skill set and your performance. 6 quarterbacks never were given an opportunity 15, 20 years ago because you had to be 6'4" or better to play that spot.
Right. Guys
now with a skill set are being given an opportunity to play.
Right.
I think that's also changing the league because, man, as much as I hate to say this, I'm going to say it anyway. The young man that lives in Baltimore never played quarterback 10 years ago.
Right.
Maybe, but and Mike remembers this. Antoine Manuel had to move to wide receiver, but he played quarterback his whole time through college. And yeah, he's a good wide receiver. He wasn't, but again, they would have forced him back in the day to move out of that position and go do something else just because of his athleticism.
Yeah.
So and again, this is funny for me. I was talking to one of the guys that is at my son's high school, and I said, and he wants to talk NFL, and I said, it's becoming more youth league. He said, what do you mean? I said, put the ball in the hands of the best athlete and put that guy at quarterback.
Yeah.
And you're going to see more and more of that coming through. It's already coming through in college.
Yep.
If that's what it is in college, that's what we're going to get at this level. So it's getting there. We're just not all the way there yet.
Iverson would be playing quarterback in the NFL if the game changed when he came out.
Now he did in high school and was an absolute monster.
Right.
And he also played corner, but he was a monster there too as a kick returner. So yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of get off the quarterback, is there any who are you excited about as far as non-quarterback heading into this draft? I know Kyle Pitts. Talk about him. Talk about his skill sets.
He's Julio Jones, the tight end. Just big.
Wow.
I mean, how do you cover 6'6", 4'4", 84 plus inch wingspan, crazy hand-eye, skills, like can run the routes, can bend, can get in and out of breaks. I've seen teams try to cover him with corners. Doesn't matter. He can run with them. He can outrun them. He can get in and out of his breaks. But then he's also a big target. You put a bigger guy on him, he's too agile and athletic. It's where the game is going. If you're, guys like Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, if you're 6'6", which doesn't make you tall in the hoop world, but it makes you a monster in the football world.
Right.
Come join us. come join us. And you're starting to see that more and more of guys transitioning to have those big bodies and athletic skills. So you know what? 6'6" is a good point guard, and my handles ain't that nice. So I'm gonna come over here and catch these balls and take my chance at making an NFL career out of it. And again, I'm not sure Kyle Pitts would have. I'm not sure what they would have done with that young man back in the day, but the fact that they're open to letting him run and catch rocks is exciting. And I think given the right offensive around him, again, I think the kid should go forward in Atlanta. That's just me. That's my bias.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you what do you think he needs to project.
I live here in Atlanta, so that's my bias. I'd love to see the Falcons get that young man so I can watch him for the local games here in Atlanta. And just imagine Julio Jones Jr. named Kyle Pitts, a tight end, Calvin Ridley. That's a formidable group that I don't know if you have enough guys on defense to cover up. You can't double them all, is my point.
Exactly.
If you can't double them all, you're in trouble somewhere because those guys all can win the one-on-one battle routinely.
Right.
Give Matt Ryan weapons. He's proven he can do that.
Again, one of the things I've heard from several coaches in this league is it's about math, right? So if you're playing defense, and how many eligibles can I send out? 5? Can't double us all. You double us all, we can stand back there all day. Now you only rush one, and I got all my guys to sit there and block your one guy. You can't do that. So what are we going to do? We're going to figure out who we can match up on, and anytime you can change the math in the favor of the offense, points are going to get scored. And I think that's what that guy does to different teams is he changes the math, and he forces people to double Julio, him, Calvin, somebody. You got to start doubling people. And that puts you in a precarious situation on the defensive side of the ball.
Gives those running backs a lot of room.
and again, the kids are willing to play the block. I'm not saying he's out there rating people, but I don't know many times this day that aren't road raiders. Most of them are just feisty and
just get in your way.
Guys.
Yeah.
And then if they can get in your way, the backs are good enough to hit seams, find creases, and get positive yards.
Right. What about the Dolphins? Anything they traded back up to 6? Any projections on there where you think they should take?
Look, I don't know what they should take. I will tell you that where they're sitting, they're in prime position to garner a really good player. And if not, they're also in prime position to decide if they want to move that pick again and add back more assets. It's always about value. Right now, no one knows. Like you don't know. We all believe the draft is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 with quarterback. Not really sure about Atlanta. As you go through this thing, it may go that way. It may not. Somebody throw a wrinkle in here and take somebody different. Now all of a sudden, these picks start gaining value as they go down. If people are coveting somebody that's potentially falling through the draft, I don't know who. I'm trying to think. Who was it in the draft that was it Minnesota that ended up not taking their pick and just passing? They just sat.
Oh, I forgot who that
They
was.
let the time out. I don't know why I can't think right now. It's probably because it's Friday.
I forgot. I heard that they let the time go out, and God, who was that?
And they just kept letting people pick. They just kept
Right.
letting people pick, knowing that. And I want it might have been Randy, but they just let the time keep going, and they finally said, "Okay, turn the card in."
Right.
And the guy didn't go at 8 where he was slated to go.
Right.
The same player that had taken the 8 at 14 or 15 or 16, whatever the pick was. Forgive me, I can't remember at the moment.
I forgot too. I remember that.
But that's genius strategy if you really think about it. Now they could have gotten clipped and somebody could have taken their guy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they don't get their pick. They just get to go up there and turn their card in whenever they want to turn it in. And so that put a lot of things in question of, well, who actually got picked 8th? They actually had the 8th pick, but they didn't pick it until these other guys win. So it strategically, there are a lot of things that happen during the course of the draft that I would say are not just easy things to just kind of put in place. And to answer your question, go back to the Dolphins. They've done a really good job of putting together a team, right?
Yeah.
People are so gung ho now because, in my opinion, because of fantasy football. It's all about the individuals, but teams win in this league. It ain't about the individuals are part of the team, but you gotta have a team. Miami is building a team, and so to that degree, you got to be good up front, both sides of the ball. The skill players will come in time, but get good up front. And I think I wouldn't be shocked to see them be focused in that regard on what they can do to bolster their line play.
Right. And speaking of that, I mean, you mentioned this. Go back to quarterback. I apologize because I thought the same thing with Joe Burrows last year. I was like, before he got hurt, I was like, man, they need to redshirt him just because of the lack of support around him. You know.
So how do you do that?
Right, but I mean,
you take him #1 in the draft. We ain't gonna play him, and he's
right.
healthy?
Exactly, and that's the thing. I was thinking maybe they should have kept on Andy Dalton because he ended up to me, because I said this before. I was like, man, he need to get ready. They ain't got enough round, and then God forbid he ended up getting hurt. I was like, golly. Now, with that, I mean, you got an opportunity to take Kyle Pitts or the offensive lineman to give him protection. I mean, wow. What's your thoughts on that? How do you want to build a team as far as building around that guy?
Look, I like Kyle Pitts. Like I said, he changes the math. A guy like Penei Sewell, he just makes you that much stouter up front. Left tackle, put him there, leave him there. Don't even think about it. Go on about your business.
Exactly.
The reality behind those type of players is they make your group better, and it's specifically when you get the right person.
Right.
When the character of the kid is as strong as the athletic attributes, that's when you know you got you a real one, because he's going to build a culture in that room of not just accountability, but professionalism, and all the other pieces that come into actually making the locker room win. Right? I was always taught this: you win in the locker room first. If you can win in the locker room, if you can get the right guys in that group, the bus gonna go where it's supposed to go. People gonna get on and off. So we'll lose some guys, we'll get some guys, but because the locker room is right, bad seeds won't be able to come in there and turn it over. Yeah. It's when you just get, random turnovers in there and you just got guys coming and going and it's whatever. It's harder. I would tell you this, it's harder today than it was when me and Mike played. Mike knew some dudes in his locker room. Same way I knew the guys in my locker room. I'm still best friends with a lot of those dudes. We talk a lot. I don't know if the game is like that anymore. I think what comes in and out of your locker room now, you got what I would call pillars. You got a couple of guys that you've invested in that you ain't getting rid of. Right. I hate to say it, the rest of them guys are transient.
Right.
They come, they go, they rip their logo off and grab another one and slap it on and they go play somewhere else. So you have to be very conscientious about who you invite into that space, because it still is, in my mind, hallowed ground and sacred space, because that's what's going to make your championship level club is the guys that police that locker room. Coaches can only do so much. Administrators can only do so much. It's going to come down to the mettle of the man that's actually in that room.
Right. And let me ask you this question, and it's off the draft a little bit because it seemed like it's been a lot of movement this offseason for agency at the quarterback position. Is there any move that surprised you or maybe applaud that you like, oh, that was a great move for us at the quarterback position this free agency period?
I think the easiest one to consider is probably the Rams and getting Stafford and sending Goff to Detroit. Matt Stafford's been a dude. Was a dude at Georgia. Was been a dude in this league, and then now you pair him with Sean McVay. I think things get really interesting. You know, the Rams have just invested in Jared Goff, so to see them make that move and the kind of the cap implications and all of that stuff that comes involved, that's probably the most interesting one for me. I mean, beyond that, I don't know. I feel like everybody's always trying to clamor for that one guy, and I'm not sure that. Sometimes guys can get a benefit from that fresh start, and they'll become better. I still go back to it's how you utilize the individual.
Right.
I think Michael Barrow is a hell of a football player. I don't know if Michael Barrow would have been Michael Barrow if I started lining him up in nose guard and asking him to do that heat and start fighting and pushing, right?
Exactly.
You can't take a really good player and ask them to do things outside their scope. And I tell you, it's the same with the quarterback position. You got to have people that are willing to, I'm going to say, create and orchestrate offense that supports what they can do. The best example for me recently is probably what Cliff Kingsbury did with Mighty Mouse out there in Arizona.
Yeah.
They took that kid and let him do exactly what he did in high school, which is exactly what he did in college, which is exactly what he's doing in the NFL. And you start to see that this dude can play. And it's not because they asked him to come in and say, I need you to take his snaps from under center. I need you throwing the bang 8. I need you throwing the deep out. No, we're going to run the offense that you're comfortable with so that you can have the greatest success that you can have. And that to me is the key in all of this, is giving guys what they can do and letting them do that.
Right, no doubt. Let me ask you this question, Ray. Me and Klew talked about this before, about how now the players are having seem like they're having more power, especially the quarterback position, as far as personnel or something like that, or they want to be more involved, i.e. Russell Wilson, as far as wants to be more involved with who hiring the offensive coordinator, players, stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that?
Look, I'm a former player, so there's a part of me that I'm all in, right? Like, hey, somebody called Michael down there in the locker room, asked him who he wanted us to pick right here at this OLB spot, right? I think there's a benefit to it.
But you talking about locker room is important,
It is, and it's not just that. It's also just nothing worse than the coach makes a decision. The head coach makes a decision that he thinks is good for the team. I don't think any head coach makes a decision that says, this is going to be bad for us, but I want to do it because I want to do it. I don't think that's the way it goes. I don't think that's the way it goes.
Right.
I think in their minds, they're like, I'm hiring this person to come in here and do this job, and it's going to be beneficial for us.
Right.
The difference is I don't know if you can always identify the motives of any individual, right? So coach comes in, first time being an offense coordinator. Only way I'm going to ever be a head coach is for me to do this thing my way. And now he's somewhat a rogue employee. He's doing his job, but he's doing it his way, for his benefit and not necessarily for the team's benefit. If you look at the league, look at the disparity of rushing and passing over the last 5 to 7 years in the league. Maybe 1-2 teams run the ball close to 50%? Everybody else is throwing this thing 70+% of the time.
Yep.
Right? Because I can't get no job running the rock. I can't get no head job being some guy that's running the ball. And hopefully people took witness to what Brian Daboll was able to do at Buffalo.
Right.
Demonstrating balance of helping to grow a young quarterback. Again, so interesting note, sidebar. I don't know how we keep getting back to this quarterback, but Josh Allen is one of the few players in history. He only had his best year in college. I think he completed 56% of his passes. Yeah. He took that 56%, and now he's almost a 65-70% completion guy in the league. That traditionally does not happen. The fact that Brian Daboll was able to help this young man. And I can't give all the credit to Brian because the kid had to do the work as well.
Yep.
He was able to orchestrate an offense that put him in a position to have that type of success is impactful. And if people took note of that, of how they use balance of running the ball, playing good D, not like there's a way to make guys productive in this league if we're just willing to go back to what I would say are some of the tried true fundamentals of you got to run the ball. The best friend to the quarterback is a run game and a tight end.
Yep.
If you can control that line of scrimmage, run the rock, get another guy in the interior of the offense that can control the number count on the outside, and now you have one-on-ones, the quarterback gets better. But again, people just want to see highlight reels. We all tune in the Red Zone. We all tune in to ESPN. We all tune into all the stuff. We get the hits on our smartphone. We get the hits on all of our information talking about our fantasy football team. but the intricacies of the game to me are still rest in the fundamentals. You got to be able to block, tackle, and do those things that are necessary to win.
Yeah.
2020 being hindsight, when you were a GM, are there any picks or any things, being the Monday night quarterback you do over again, or you'd want to do, or someone you passed on?
Probably do it all over again. Right?
Exactly.
There are guys that played and they were good players. There's guys that fizzled out and flamed out that they were terrible, but there's nothing worse than not doing it all your own way, but being held accountable to it.
Right.
And so I would tell you my experience and what I saw from others and what the outside world really doesn't really get a chance to see. It's not, no one person is making that decision.
Right.
And so it takes this collaborative effort. And to that point, I'd be more Russell Wilson-ish. Hey, Mr. Owner, we need to pick a different head coach, or y'all need to pick a different GM, and maybe it's not me, and I'm fine with that. But there's nothing worse than, to me, arranged marriages of, Mike, you got to work with AA, and y'all ain't never met.
Right.
That makes that, because again, his philosophy for what he expects can be completely different from your philosophy of what you expect. And now you got to figure out a way. You've trained your entire life on building helicopters, and he's built boats. What's the common ground? What are we building? What are we coming up with? And if you don't get on common ground, the mistakes become obvious.
I think you see it in all the professionals. You see it with the way Pat Riley and the Heat, when you have that consistency. You see it with Belichick and that one mindset. And there's one chief in charge. Everyone's rowing the same way, sort of.
I would disagree. I not disagree, because again, you're right. Bill Belichick, Andy Reid. There's voices in the crowd that are the loudest voices. Mm-hmm. I think we've lost our way on checks and balances. Everybody's got to have some skin in the game.
Right.
And that skin in the game doesn't make you the person that does it. I would ask this question. Coaches want to pick players, but if a GM walked down to the sideline on Sunday and said, "Hey man, we need to get out of cover 2. We need to start running some cover 3 and 4."
Right.
That coach would lose his ever-loving
mind. Right.
He would lose his mind. And so because you don't have the ability to check and balance each other in a positive way, it made it much more complicated. And so consequently, I think coaches have the power now, then give them that power, make them accountable. And maybe that's what we're seeing, is that everybody wants a head coach run team. The GM's now going to become an employee of sorts. And it's not what you once remembered as Ron Wolf making draft picks and selecting coaches.
Right.
It's an owner deciding who the head coach is, and that head coach then deciding all the other pieces that get involved. So it's just a different way. It's a different way. It's not how I grew up in the league.
Right.
It's where we are.
It's like, if Ozzie was still really active with Baltimore, would he be trading away an all-pro offensive lineman for Lamar?
And look, that's a great question. I don't know if Oz would trade it, but if Harbaugh has the juice and he wants to move that guy gets moved.
Wow.
It's just the nature of what it is, and again, it should always be about what's good for the long-term investment for the franchise.
Right.
That's what it should be. It shouldn't be about any one person's ego, understanding, etc. Because again, you're never one player away. That's my opinion.
Right.
Even the really good teams that the Giants had, there was holes. There was people that wasn't, difference makers at every spot. But good luck finding them, because the other guys they had could cover up those shortcomings.
The team that always sticks out to me is when Vermeil came back into the league and Trent Green goes down, and then this guy Kurt Warner, who I had never heard of a day in my life until I watched him. I was like, someone was that Vermeil's responsibility putting him on that bench, or was that the GM who had that guy waiting there?
Again, I would tell you, for me, pedigree is what people lean on.
Right.
Mike, who else recruited you out of high school?
Notre Dame, Florida State.
Mike is too good. We got to find somebody. I'll use him. Right? So who do I get the chance to play in the National Football League if I chose Morehouse instead of Duke?
Probably not.
Right? Do I? And again, same kid, Might even have the same career, may even have better stats in Morehouse than I had to do.
Right.
But do you get the same opportunity? And it's that opportunity, and on the side of that, there's something that comes with getting drafted and getting selected and getting put in a certain position, which is confidence. When Mike knows he's not going to be cut, he can go to practice and let loose and show you all of these
Right.
capable of.
Right.
The kid that comes in the agent, he's got a different role, or like, you don't get the same opportunities. Kurt Warner walking in off the street, getting signed as a futures, and he ain't no draft choice. He's just some kid that you picked up out of the Arena League, and you like,
right.
He wasn't even in Arena 1. Like, so now you're looking like, okay, who we go? This guy? This
Right.
the guy we need to put the future in?
Right.
Why did Tony Romo not play right away?
Exactly.
Right? Don't come from a prestigious program. All
Right.
you're doing is going to practice and shred your number one defense. Sooner or later, somebody says, hey, man, y'all think we should play the guy that kills us every day? Like, we
Right.
got this championship defense, man. We should put him in the game.
Right.
It's a process. And to your point, all those that have enough confidence, and I'm going to use this confidence the other way, as a coaching staff, when you got that security, then you can have, I hate to say this, I don't know if I can even say it, then you can have the balls to put that guy in the game and not be worried about what people are going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I think about that, I think about Seattle, because like you brought up before, they just paid a guy before they draft Russell Wilson. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing about him. I mean, Pete, he's like, he don't care. He's going to play the best dude. And he, like you say, got to have the balls to get that done, you know?
You do. And if that coach is not willing to stand in the way and get it done, here's the funny thing. You could say that you could say that this guy was terrible or that guy was terrible, but you really don't know unless you truly invest in the person and the player. Because the players know when you don't like, when they're not liked. When you go to the building, the coach is like, oh. And I want to say, I forgot, somebody said it a couple years ago in a draft special. It's better when it's a guy that I'd like to coach. Right? So if the coach wants to coach you,
yes,
he's invested in making you better.
Right. Right.
And he walk in that room and every day he's like, man, I can't believe we drafted Michael Barrow.
Right. Right.
Mike dead on the vine. He's not gonna play good there. He can't. And unless Mike comes in and just decides that he's just clearly better than everybody, he's gonna play his balls off regardless of how they think of him. Then the coach will be like, Mike's my guy.
Exactly.
2 months, Mike remembers it wasn't that way. It wasn't, I got love for this dude. It was, Barrow, get in there. It was all the negativity that may not be voiced into the media and all the other places, but players know when they're not liked in particular spots. Right.
No doubt. Well, Ray, man, I could sit here and talk to you all day, and I got nothing but questions come up. But before I let you go, right? Let me ask you a question. Besides quarterback, what is the hardest position to evaluate besides quarterback? What's the hardest position to evaluate?
You asking for me or just in general?
Or just for you, or just in general, however you want to answer that question.
Okay, so I'll give you both. I was a defensive guy, but I had also played offense when I first got to college. So I had a good understanding of all the skill spots, right? I knew wide receiver play because I was a wide receiver / H-back. I knew defensive back play because I was a safety in college, and then I moved to linebacker. So I had all the skill stuff pretty well defined. I knew defensive line play because after you start tapping people on the butt and sliding them from 4 eyes to 3s, and you start to learn all of that stuff. So that became easy. My biggest issue when I got to the league was offensive linemen.
Okay.
They work. They're supposed to work as one. All 5 guys are supposed to work as one and do their thing. That really didn't make sense at first, right? It was just about physical traits. So that was my crutch when I first got in. I would tell you the average person has no clue what a defensive safety is supposed to do.
Oh, wow.
They don't understand how they fit into the game, how the math changes when you go from 2 high safety looks down to a rotation to a cover 3 or cover 1 look, and you insert that 8th man into the box, where the overhang is, where the fill is, that part of the game to me gets foreign to people that don't really immerse themselves in football. Right. Even guys that are in football, it's really hard for the average person to truly understand. Play safety is a series of short eye movements. I got to watch here. I got to check there. Watch here. Got to check there. Watch there. Guys with great eyes are really good at safety. Ed Reed, right? Everybody wonders why Ed Reed was so good. He had elite eye control.
Anticipation.
But it's not anticipation when you're Ed Reed. It's
Right.
it's like knowing you got an ace up your sleeve, and just when do you want to drop it? You're so good
Right.
with moving the cards around. You got the ace. You're just waiting to when you want to play it. And Ed would do that routinely. Of, hey, everybody thinks I'm going over here. Let me just start leaking,
Right.
knowing he's coming back to make a play in another direction. And
Exactly.
he could bounce that all off with those short eye movements that made him very successful. So I would tell you safety probably for the average person, and I would tell you
Offensive lineman.
offensive line for me.
Wow. Well said, man. Well, man, wow. Thank you so much for your time today, bro. I appreciate it. I know Klew gonna hate that he missed you, man. We gotta get you back on maybe Monday, man. Talk some more before this draft. I don't know what your schedule like, man. I hate to put you on the spot, but I can see it.
Man, whenever you call, I'm here, bro. I'm here.
Thanks, man.
All right.
I appreciate it. All right, well, shoot, man. Hey, from sideline to baseline. Hey, you heard from your boy Double A. You heard from the GM, our residential GM, man. Farmer getting it down, man. Hey, we appreciate you guys joining us today, man. Y'all have a great night. God bless.